Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments. With 6 showrooms of gear, mycymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bobby A, and today I wanted to tell you about how much I really love the Hudson Music digital app. Okay, now, check it out. It's an app that you can get for your device, and you can purchase books from the Hudson Music digital store and have them stored right on your device. The great thing about it is you always have it with you, and any content that might be video related or music related is right there at your fingertips. It's a wonderful resource.
Welcome again to another edition of Drummer Nation, and in this case I'm very happy to have not only my esteemed world-class co-host Adam Nussbaum, but 3 other world-class drummers as well, Joe Hunt, Jeff Hamilton, and Harold Jones. And you might want to know what all those 3 other guests have in common, besides the fact that they're all great, wonderful drummers, and that is that they all come from a little town called Richmond, Indiana. And I don't know of any other small town that's produced so many great musicians through such a long period of time. I'm going to read this, but you guys know this, but I'm sure the watchers don't, because I didn't. Richmond is sometimes called the cradle of recorded jazz because the earliest jazz recordings were made at the studio of Gannett Records, and they were the first at Gannett to record such artists as, and dig this list, Louis Armstrong, Bix Beiderbecke, Jelly Roll Morton, Duke Ellington, Fats Waller, and Hoagie Carmichael, including Hoagie's first recording of Stardust, and Pops himself, Louis Armstrong's first recording ever with King Oliver's band. So what's going on there, man? Is something in the water? How did all that happen in Richmond, Indiana? You guys jump in at will.
I defer. I've heard the stories, but I think these guys have a clear picture of it.
Well, it was in the center of where everybody was coming from New Orleans to Chicago, New York to the West Coast, the West Coast. It kind of was in the center of a crossroads. You know, like the first movie was shown in Richmond, Indiana. Yeah. But I think that's probably why it was where everybody was on their way to a gig, I think. Yeah.
And I think the Gannett family came up with this recording technique with the Victrola, and the legend has it that when Louis Armstrong liked the recording quality of those recordings, he drove either the Hot 5 or Hot 7 down from Chicago to record in Richmond. And they kept asking Louis Armstrong to stand back from the semicircle around the Victrola because his sound, it wasn't too loud. It was just a big sound. And he kept stepping back and stepping back. It was like winter, and they opened the door and he was standing outside, and that's where they got the perfect mix for the band, when he was standing playing through the door around the Victrola. So, but it was also next to Starr Piano Company, STARR, and both were lost in a fire. Both buildings were lost in a fire when I was very young. Or maybe no, I think I was still in Richmond. It was really young, but yeah, they had great recording quality. That's why all those people wanted to come there and record. And by the way, it's on the way to, like Harold said, it's on the way to where we're going.
Also, the bands, like Harold said, it was sort of a place where people transferred through. The movie houses back there, the Tivoli Theater, the State Theater. I think we had 3 movie houses. Those 2 had live bands would come and play because they had time off, and it was like a rehearsal for them, I guess. I saw Woody Herman's band playing one time. It was an all-star band. Milt Jackson, he had Shadow Wilson, Gene Ammons, Shorty Rogers. It was a fabulous band in my hometown, our hometown theater, Tivoli Theater, on a Saturday afternoon. It was kind of crazy. And anyway.
Yeah. Joe, you took me out to the PVI when Claude Thornhill was coming through, and he had Gene
Oh,
Quill and Phil Woods.
that's right. That was a great band. Yeah.
That
Was
was a
it
great,
Billy
yeah.
Exner?
Frank Isola.
Frank Isola. All right. Now,
Yeah.
he was from Detroit, wasn't he?
Right. Frank Isola, great drummer. Yeah. I played with
Yeah.
Stan
Yeah.
Getz, recorded.
Yeah.
He was with Claude. Bill Anthony, bass player. It was a great band. Great
Well, how about the
sound.
local scene there? There must have been some other great players when you guys were coming up. Were there clubs or places where there was a trio, or were you doing like weddings and parties? And what was the local scene like?
Well,
For
I'm probably
me,
the
it was,
oldest one here. So, I mean,
yeah.
I could
I want to
sort
start
of
with you then.
say, um, the
Joe,
answer is no.
my
The answer
question
is
is,
no, basically. Yeah.
there, because I was always, I'm always curious, who lit the fire and helped to kindle your interest when you were a youngster. There's usually somebody you had to have seen or something that on the local
Well, we
hang
probably
that
each one
was
had a separate experience. My first addiction to drums came when Spike Jones' band played in our high school, Richmond High, and it was the first time I'd seen a live drummer who could play good. And the guy, I was fascinated by the hi-hat, man. This hi-hat, this is a cool thing, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to play like that guy. So that's the bug that bit me, I guess, watching that Spike Jones drummer.
How old were you?
I was probably middle school, junior high, probably something like that.
And had you had any kind of musical training
Well,
or
like I
anything
say,
before
each of
that?
us have a different story. My older
Right.
brother is quite a lot older than me, and he had 78 records, and they were great. And when he went to service and got into World War II, he left me his collection. So I started. My favorite was a Count Basie record called "Doggin' Around,"
Hmm.
and Papa Joe Jones was the drummer, and Prez was playing a great sax solo. So I played the record out. I think I literally wore it out, and of course I wanted to hear more. So I knew I was just sort of putting things together, these guys' names and the great sound, and my brother had a pair of brushes. He was a clarinetist, but he had a pair of brushes that he fooled around with. So when he split, he left the brushes. So I started playing brushes with the records, and that's how I got started. I mean, each one of us is a little different story.
Of course, but it's
Jumping,
fascinating.
well, jumping ahead, Harold and me, we used to get together, the two of us, and just play all day, man. We'd put our
Yeah.
drum sets together, and I was sort of the host of the thing. I would
Yeah.
sort of feature this. Okay, this week, Harold, let's check out Gene Krupa and Art Blakey. Okay, we'll feature them, and we try to play like them, right? And then we take turns, and man, it was a ball every Saturday, man. I look
Yeah.
forward to going to Harold's
Yeah.
crib and playing drums with him. It was wonderful. So we didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to sound like these guys.
Must have done something right. Was there any local playing, local gigging going on then?
Not to speak of, not any jazz much.
To me, no, but to me, Joe, it was you and Paul Plummer picking me up, and we'd go to John Pierce's house.
Oh yeah, John, right.
John.
He was a catalyst. Yeah, John
Yeah.
Pierce. He was a
Now, Paul Plummer
saxophonist
was a
from,
tenor player, correct?
yeah, he was John's
Yeah.
student. Yeah, John
Yeah.
Pierce was from Kansas City, and he was probably our sensei, I guess you could say, because
Yeah.
he had a house on the west side where Jeff, you're a west side guy, right?
Right.
I think I can't remember the location, but he had a kind of one of those prefab after the war houses,
Hmm.
and he hosted sessions on Sunday afternoons, and we'd go over and play, and he'd play Bird records for us and have us sing along with him. We'd have to memorize the Bird records. And, I mean, that was great, man. I mean, it was Harold and me loved it. That's what we wanted to do, so it was sort of, right, Harold? It sort of was cool.
Well, the first time you and Paula both had tears in your eyes picking me up. and you guys had tears in your eyes, and I said, what's wrong? And you said Charlie Parker died today.
Mm.
I was in the car when you guys told me that.
Well, he was, of course, very important to all of us, but he was extremely important to us because we could sing his solos, because John,
yeah,
it's so special.
Yeah.
I remember my dad.
Jeff mentioned that we were talking about Leo Ryan, John Pierce, Andy Simpkins too. I think those three guys come to my mind as sort of senseis for us, Andy was a little older than Harold and me, but he was the first to get a really good gig with the Three Sounds. But we played with him, and he was very encouraging, especially to me because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I'd go to his house and play with him, and he was very. Yeah.
I got to jump in. I think, during that period, like as I say, during those Wonder Bread years, for young drummers to have a great bass player to play with is invaluable.
Right.
Yeah.
Andy played great piano too.
Wow.
He played bass, left hand bass there.
Well,
he was really good.
Joe and Harold, do you know Andy's first instrument was clarinet at Hibbard, right? Do you know when he switched to bass?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
No.
I met him because my mom taught at Hibbard. She was a school teacher.
Okay.
And that was the connection how I first met Andy through my mom. His father was a janitor at Hibbard.
At Hibbard.
And they lived right across the street from Hibbard, right?
They did.
That house.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, later, Harold and Andy wound up both in Los Angeles, and you guys have quite a history, the two of you.
Yeah, it was quite natural. Because, back then, Andy used to help my dad wash cars out in our garage in the back. And Andy was older than me, so he got to work on the paint only. And I had to do windows and chrome. Yeah, because I was too young. Because, back then the paint, you might rub it off, I think, if you rub too hard. Yeah, so I was always envious of Andy being able to do the paint, and I had to do chrome. But you could get a chrome cut, man, and you didn't know you were bleeding until 10 minutes later.
What did you get back at him later when you were playing with Sarah Vaughan or something? Did you bug him about the chrome?
No, Andy was always hard to beat, especially when the bill came at the dinner.
That's good.
He'd be the first to have to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean?
What a beat that guy had!
Yes.
Yeah. He was so.
Yes.
Yeah.
He and John Pierce, Leo Ryan. I think those guys were all really important. Leaders for us youngsters.
And you drove me over. You drove me over to David Baker in Indianapolis with his big band.
Well, that
was another thing.
Big teacher, David.
Yeah.
And this was when he was playing trombone.
Yeah.
Now, was Al Kiger out there also?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was around that. Well, Wes Montgomery. Wes Montgomery was another teacher too.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a very, very giving guy, man. I mean,
Yeah.
He was special.
Yeah.
These people, man, they have such an important part in our lives, and amen for them all,
It's true.
So even though it was such a small town, you still had a lot of good players there to work with and learn from.
We did.
Yeah.
I think for me coming along a little later is that my dad was in Patton's Army, and when he came home, that was the big band era, and they liked Basie and Tommy Dorsey band, and so I was surrounded by big band records in our house that the stereo the size of a 56 Cadillac, sitting in the living room, and I would just listen to my folks' big band records, what few we had, and then that led me to Specialty Record Shop on Main Street, which was an incredible, these gentlemen know, an incredible record shop. And they started steering me toward what I needed to listen to based on what I had been listening to. And you could go into these booths and put headphones on and kind of audition the LP you were going to buy if you wanted it. So they were very, very helpful. I bought the Count Basie Duke Ellington first time up there at their recommendation, and Oscar Peterson Night Train and the trio plays, and they really were helpful in guiding me to the records I needed to hear. And they were great people too. They were so nice. They kind of took me in, and I'd be up there every Saturday with my lawnmower money buying records, you know.
Yeah.
That's another link.
Yeah. And Joe and I, Joe had such a connection to Specialty Records that they called him and told him when the delivery guy was coming through the alley with the records. And we'd show up in the alley behind the record shop, and he'd open up his trunk. Yeah, Joe. Yeah, Joe. I remember all this.
Well, I'm glad you guys.
I never, I've never stopped.
Yeah,
right?
I'm glad you guys were gone eventually, because I wouldn't have got any records if I'd known that.
Yeah.
But Jeff, you were well aware of those guys, right? Because I think I remember you telling me when you were wondering if you could be a professional drummer and make a living playing jazz, you said, well, look at Joe Hunt and Harold Jones.
Well, actually, other people were wondering if I could. I was always sure I could do it, But you always got people telling, "Oh, you need to come back and be the high school band director at Richmond High," And Harold may not remember this, but he was in the Richmond High School orchestra with my oldest sister, who played string bass. And when they were at Dennis, both my sisters played string bass. They had to stand on a chair to play the instrument. The bass was so big. And then there was a variety show every year at Richmond High School called Footlights, and they would draw off the high school talent to put on this show, and there'd be tap dancers and singers and all this, and the whole community would come and see this high school production of Footlights. And Harold Jones was a phenomenal drummer when I was about 7 years old, and I went over. I think you might have been a junior, senior in high school, and I couldn't believe that there it was. I'd seen Gene Krupa play on TV, and I'd seen various bands play on like black and white TV, but that's the first time I saw anyone play like Harold Jones, and that was a big source of inspiration for me. That, man, he's in Richmond, Indiana. Maybe I can get this done after all.
If he can do it, anybody can do it.
No. Then as I was talking to the gentleman earlier, that Leo Ryan, the name that keeps coming up, had a trio in Richmond, and his brother played bass, upright gut string bass, Dean Ryan, and we all knew Dean and Leo. And Leo heard me in the other restaurant that had a piano trio, Carol Lou and John Hedges, and I got an opportunity to play with them, as did Harold. But two trios in restaurants in Richmond was just unheard of at that time. So I think another part of why the music was important to people is that we had a great school system. The music system in the schools was fantastic when I was coming up, and I assume it was when you gentlemen were there. Elrod was the teacher there, I think, Harold, when you were there. And
in band, that's after me, because
okay,
I had Ben Graham,
okay,
and the guy that got me my scholarship, Robert Carr.
To Chicago, right?
Yeah, to Chicago. Robert Carr got me directed.
Okay.
So I got to give him big credit.
Yeah. Richmond had the first organized high school orchestra in the United States. So, I mean, that's how forward thinking the music system was, the music program. So I had a snare drum. I was taking private lessons in third grade. The teacher came into the class, said, "Put that flutophone down and come down in the basement, play Faith of Our Fathers with the violin player." So that they would start you young. So I think that helped too.
I think that happened. I think that happened after my time.
Because Joe.
Ben Graham, he had a brother, Paul, who was kind of cool. Paul played tenor, but Ben, the high school music teacher, he was a square, man.
Yeah.
He was. And so I
With
remember
the
we had a choice. This is way back, 50,
yeah.
50s,
Yeah. Well,
So
Yeah.
as far as jazz is
we could
concerned,
take either art or music, right? And
yeah.
so I took the art, because
Uh-huh.
music
Uh,
was
Oh,
really
as
not
far as
happening.
jazz was concerned, it never really. Well, they had a stage band when you were in there, you guys, right? At Richmond, did you have your own little?
yeah.
Yeah.
They
Maybe
did when
Harold.
I was there. Yeah, they
Okay.
did when I was there.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that was gone when I came in. It was strictly concert band and marching band.
Uh,
And I was such a pest to John Parshall, the band director, about let me put together the jazz ones. And of course they wouldn't let it with administration. So Earlham College had a jazz ensemble. And the director came over and he said to the band director, "Do you have anybody who wants to play drums in a big band?" My band director said, "Take this kid out of my hair right now." And at 15, I got to go over and play with the Earlham Jazz Ensemble. So,
now,
we
what year? What year was that?
none of your business, Harold.
They didn't have a music department, and they didn't have
No.
music
One
or
one guy
sports.
came in. Donald Chan was his name. He came in and he had a bunch of Buddy Rich charts, and he started a band. And I knew all the Buddy Rich, all the Love for Sale and all that. So it's kind of like I had my own big band at 15 years old. So
So
60, 67, 68,
things got hipper
Oh.
in your
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. A Quaker
yeah.
college with a jazz band. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys each leave to go on the road with a big band or to go to college or what?
I left to
went
go to
college.
college. I didn't want to go to college, but they made me. I wanted to go on a band bus when I was 15, but I
Me
went to
too.
Indiana University for 2 years, long enough to know I needed to get on a band bus, and that's when I left.
Joe, what about you? Because you're the elder statesman here.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
was the first? What was your first venture out of town?
Well, I guess I was like Jeff. I didn't want to finish high school. Summer before my senior year, my parents let me go on the road with an alcoholic trumpet player named Bobby Geyer, and he was a famous guy. I guess he had had some big band gigs, but he was a character. And but anyway, I spent about 6 weeks up at Lake Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Great school.
The terrible band, but I loved it. I just loved playing my drums every night, and somebody's paying me money to play my drums. Holy cow! I mean, how can it be better than that? So I came back and told my dad, I don't want to finish school. I want to stay on the road. He said, no. Like, I guess, Jeff, you had the same.
Yeah.
And my father was very supportive, and he said, no, you're going to music school, but it could be music school, but you're going to school. So I went to IU. And that was an eye-opening. God, my goodness, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Did they have a jazz department at that time?
No, but they had a lot of great jazz players,
right,
all over the place. People, like us who wanted to play, and there was no shortage of jam sessions. And I mean,
jazz was still a four-letter word back then, right?
Well, people were listening to Miles Davis and John Coltrane by that time, and bebop was happening, and we were transcribing, and I was trying to play like Philly Joe Jones, and it was hot. It was just great, everybody was on the same page,
Was it guys
Who
like
were some of the
Jerry
other
Coker?
people?
Well, some were students and some were Freddie Hubbard came down from Indianapolis. And, by the way, Larry Ridley, a very dear friend of mine I talked to yesterday. We stay in touch. And Harold, he wants to talk to you, Larry. Remember Larry, the bass player?
I dated his sister.
Oh,
Easy now. Easy. Hold it.
No,
Too much
she was
information.
pretty. She was pretty.
Yeah. He was a handsome guy, Larry. He's still in the scene,
I know.
We talk every week, but yesterday we were talking. I told him about this. He said, "Oh, man, have Harold call me. I want to talk to Harold."
Okay.
I'll send you his phone number and stuff.
I got it. I think. But
when you left Richmond, Harold, where did you go? Was it a big band or?
No. I got this scholarship. The
right.
teacher, the band director, got me this scholarship to audition in at the American Conservatory. and he knew the exam. For some reason, he knew what I was supposed to play at the exam. He had me go over it and over it for like 2 weeks before I was going to leave. Yeah, and I went up there and I just went right through it with the
So
breeze.
you really were sight reading it really good, huh?
Hey, man. Hey.
Always best to know the material.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
play better if I've heard it before.
Me too.
Yeah. I read it.
Hey,
it
Adam,
better.
you get your gigs your way.
Yeah.
But you all had very supportive families and very supportive
Yeah.
and very good teachers and good education programs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one thing in common.
Yeah.
Some people have cited something of an American heartland sound. They used to refer to it in the early days with like country, Jimmy Rogers and the Carter family and all that. And then later with rock and roll, John Mellencamp and that kind of stuff, or maybe Pat Metheny was pulled into that genre. Is there a heartland drum style? Is there anything that unifies you guys based on maybe location, do you think?
I have talked, John Von Nolan was a mentor of mine, and I actually left Indiana to study with him. And 8 months later, he'd turned me around from a Buddy Rich wannabe to somebody that can put a band on their back and play Tommy Dorsey music. That was my first gig, the Tommy Dorsey band. And he was saying that, Jack Guilfoyle and a lot of the guys around Indianapolis at that time, there's something in the cymbal beat, and we all play it differently, but there's something that jumps out of the cymbal beat, and you go, that guy's from Indiana, that guy's a Hoosier. And I heard a drummer about 3 years ago in Cleveland, and he missed most of the things in the big band, but his ride cymbal, it was a Hoosier beat. And we don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but that guy's from Indiana, and you guys feel the same way. I mean, you can't put your finger on it,
Yeah.
I can say, I remember
corn.
in Indianapolis in the 50s, the late 50s, early 60s, there was a whole bunch of fabulous drummers, black cats, I think mostly, but really good. I mean, just fabulous. Thomas Whitted, Paul Parker, man. And they had this beat, they would play with conga players, and they were good conga players. Ronnie
Was
Ryan.
Ray there? Was Ray Appleton out there too?
No, he's a kid.
Yeah, he was later.
He's a little bit later.
Okay.
But he came pretty soon after. But these guys, I mean, they were fucking great, man, pardon my language. But they were just out of sight. And the conga player, has an eighth note feel. You know what I mean? So the cymbal beat of these guys was a kind of straight eighth note thing. And of course, we all get eighth notes fast, but they'd be in medium tempo. Ting, 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 And that's an Indiana thing, or a Midwest thing, I think, that straight eighth note. It's more than just that, but that's the way Wes Montgomery played. He played that way. And he had Jimmy Lovelace played with him. He was from Kansas City. That's another kind of a Midwestern. You ever check him out, Jimmy Lovelace?
Yeah, he's on a video of Wes's.
What a super drummer that guy was.
Yeah.
When I first got to New York, he was playing around a lot, and wonderful drummer, and very supportive, great guy. Great to hear him. I never forget, I heard him at a jam session one night at a club called Barbara's, used to be on the 3rd and McDougal, and he was playing behind the tenor solo, and he was way up on the top of the beat. And then when it was time for the piano solo, the tempo didn't change, but he shifted more behind the time. And
exactly.
to hear somebody that had that control of shading the time,
I know, man,
was really extraordinary.
He's a Kansas City guy, but he had a feel, like you said, man.
I heard that, and it was like,
I know. He's on those records with what? He was Wes's drummer when Wes had his own group before he passed.
with Mayburn and Arthur Harper.
That was a great rhythm section. All of them.
Yeah, Adam, when I shift gears like that, it usually means I'm lost.
Comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
I like the idea that there's a sound associated with that area. You know, New Orleans is that way. You can hear a New Orleans drummer and say, "There's some New Orleans in there." You know,
The Boston drummers. I think the Boston drummers have an identifiable quality, a certain kind of articulation.
Really?
You know, I hear. Well, you've been up there long enough now, Joe.
I know I have. But, I mean, maybe like Alan Dawson. You mean like
Alan Dawson, Roy Haynes, Clifford Jarvis, Bobby Ward.
Guys who came from Boston. I see what you're saying.
Tony, maybe.
There's a thing in there. Yeah.
Well, both of my folks graduated from Boston High School in Indiana, so maybe there's a connection to Boston, Indiana.
The stories that go on. I mean, if these walls could talk, holy mackerel, we'd all go to jail.
But Harold, how did you get from the conservatory to Paul Winter Consort? Because you came through Richmond and played at Townsend Center when I was in high school, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and I came to hear you play with that band, and I was always curious how you got from the conservatory to that. That was your first group out of the conservatory?
Yeah. The Paul, he was good at these kind of things. They had an intercollegiate jazz festival from colleges around the country. And then the winners in the specific cities got to go to Washington, D.C. to have the final test. And we won in Chicago, and we went down to Washington, D.C., and we won down there. And that was how we got the South American tour, because the judges were with John Hammond from the Hammond Organs things, Gene Lees, who at the time, he was the editor of Downbeat magazine. And I can't remember the third judge, but they qualified as being able to say that we should be able to be the ones to do the South American tour.
Great.
And that band just kept going and kept going. And the rhythm section there was good. I mean, Richard Evans on bass.
That's right. I remember that.
Warren Bernhardt on piano.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had an array of percussion around you too, which I didn't know you had done at the time.
Well, you know, going through South America, you end up collecting stuff.
Buy another suitcase.
I want one of those, and I want one of those. But you see these things you hadn't seen before and whatnot.
Yeah. That lent itself to Paul's music, though, right? He was a little more out than traditional.
He kept going. He kept right on going, right?
Yeah.
Harold, when you were down in South America, were there any of the drummers that had an impact on you down there? Do you remember anybody in particular?
Those bossa nova drummers, they were just like jazz drummers. I mean, they were all individually a little different, you know.
Right.
But you could hear that pocket, man. You could hear that pocket. I fell in love with that music, but I was a jazz man. Yeah. But it had I heard it as its own self. Yeah. Beautiful.
Some of your favorite drummers, Jeff, are Brazilian, right?
Yeah, and we're in touch a lot. Paulo Braga is, even though he doesn't speak English, we're on social media like 3 or 4 times a week, and I've got the translation out trying to figure out what he's saying. Celso de Almeida, Edu Ribeiro is one of they're all dear friends. Once you go there, they want to talk about what you do, and you want to talk about what they do, and so it's a lot of fun. Ray Brown told a funny story when they went over there with jazz at the Philharmonic, and he and Oscar Peterson wanted to go hear the hot band, and they said they walked down these stairs. They got their overcoats on, they're dressed to the nines, and they go down the stairs, and the band is like, jacket, you got jacket, you got jacket, you got that. They okay, OP, we're ready for this. and the band sees him get to the bottom step and went chaka chaka da ding da ding ding da ding ding da ding ding. No.
No. I want to hear what you play.
Yeah. But I mean that's that generation. These guys can do it. They can play jazz. They're really versatile and Celso, Rafael Barada. I mean all these guys are just wonderful. Daduka, Adam, Daduka.
All these cats. Yeah.
Yeah, so many of them now. But I'm actually in touch more with those guys than a lot of American drummers, and brushes kind of fascinate them too. They want to do something different with brushes than they're doing. So.
Well, I love the brushes because you can tell I'm not using a comb. So
yeah. Well, and you spend so much money on your instrument, the pizza box.
I've had to, as long as it's kosher.
Yeah. You have a Pizza Hut endorsement now?
No. But I found this record that Joe is on.
Oh man,
with a Bert Seeger.
They can, yeah.
I love the cover. This one had Garzone. The other one had Jimmy Mosier, another one of the Boston legends up there. Was Jimmy Zitano still doing stuff up in Boston when you were up there?
No, he wasn't. He was pretty long gone. I think he left Boston in maybe the early 60s to go to New Orleans to play with Al Hirt.
Al Hirt, right. He had that gig for a long time.
And he never came back. I don't know what happened to him after that, but he didn't come back to Boston.
Right.
But he was a hell of a big band drummer. I love his big band recordings with Herb. They're quite good.
Joe, are you
Tom Roy.
still gigging, Joe? Are you still gigging?
Oh, yeah. Well, I play once a month with my own quartet at a little club in Cambridge here. But
Beautiful.
I don't do like weddings and stuff like that because it's I have some disabilities now. It's a little hard to walk and get around, and I'll be 85 in a couple of weeks. So
good for you, man.
But anyway, I still
playing weddings is a disability.
It is.
I've been disabled many times. But Harold, I know you're still busy, right?
No, I've been busy right up to now, but no, I'd like to just do my big band once a month out here where I am. Yeah.
And play
I
golf.
have disability. I'm just trying to do it a little better.
I'm trying to do datability.
Disability.
Disability.
So Harold, are you getting like 4 and 5 rounds of golf in a week?
Well, my feet are so bad I can't do it more than twice.
Yeah, okay.
Wow. Yeah, my feet are so bad. But I'm able to shoot my age.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You told me at the front door you have a set of drums and a set of golf clubs, and one or the other goes in the car. Every time you leave.
Where we live, in case of fire. Yeah, man.
You don't play tennis anymore, do you?
Oh, no, not since the elbow surgery. No, I blew a ligament off the elbow, and the doctor said, "Have you ever made a dime on the tennis court?" I said, "No," and he said, "Put the racket down." That was
you got another racket going on.
I got another racket. Yeah.
Do you all teach? I think, Harold, do you teach at all?
Not really. I hang out at the bar and tell stories.
Oh, well, that works.
That's an education too, man.
Yeah. Don't do this. Yeah.
Are you teaching any?
I have been until I just moved recently into this new apartment, my wife and I, and it's a 20-floor high-rise and thin walls, so it's kind of hard to teach here. But prior to this, we had a house that we rented for the past 16 years, and I taught 2 ensembles a week and usually 2 or 3 private drum students and a couple of Zoom now and then. So I've been teaching right along till recently.
Hammer, I know you still teach a little bit, right?
Not very much. Since we're back up from the pandemic, I'm happy to say work is is almost too plentiful for an aging grizzled veteran. We've all done one nighters like that. I've got one day at home the whole month of June, and that's a little much for me now. And it's all travel. So, yeah, the work is there, and when I go home to vacation, and then I'm working on the road. I'm still traveling quite a bit, so I work on the road, but I go home to have a vacation, and I don't want to teach when I'm home. So I'll do probably a half dozen lessons a year, maybe, something like that.
You guys hear any other hotbeds of musicians or drummers from some small community we wouldn't know of?
I don't think it's isolated. I think everybody has so much information right in front of their face now that they're learning from I had a guy from Venezuela who wanted to study with me about 7-8 years ago, and he was all over the place. It was like there was 8 bars of Brian Blade, 8 bars of Jimmy Cobb, a little DeJohnette for 4 bars, and it was like, man, this guy's like cutting and pasting all these people. And I said, so your teacher was really versatile in showing you all these people, right? And he goes, we don't have any jazz teachers there. And I said, where'd you learn? And he said, YouTube. Just click on the YouTube and you copy what you see. So that's how he put his jazz vocabulary together. So I don't think there are pockets, is what I'm saying. I think it's, anybody can find anything anytime now.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Victor. I'm General Manager with the Craviato Drum Company. We wanted to offer a one-ply, solid shell product, but we wanted it to stay true to our mission of offering handmade drums of uncompromised quality built here in the USA. So take a listen to our Center Stage Series drum set.
Well, I want to ask Harold again about, I saw you with the Basie band. That was your next gig after Paul Winter, right?
No, I did things like Eddie Harris.
Oh, right.
I was with him for
Exodus.
a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, Exodus and Bunky Green.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
didn't you play with that little piano player, that guy? What was his name? Jack DeJohnette?
Yeah, he was on piano. We had a trio.
You little drums too.
Yeah.
He copped all my shit, man.
I
bet. That's what I would have.
Now look where he is. Yeah. That's it. But I didn't basically. I was working around town there. Fred Wacker, he had a big band in Chicago, and I was working the original Playboy Club.
Oh,
up there. And I did the Marty something on a TV show. He was a gossip columnist, and I did his TV show.
Okay.
So yeah, I was a lot of other little things, and I was busy working. I went on the road for $300 when I was making $600 at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have much sense then. It was mentality, but it was the music.
And 600 was good then.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you better believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, but sitting next to Freddie Green, you should have been paying him, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So
there you go.
How did you know that you knew somebody to get on the Basie band, or they'd heard you?
A trombone player named Harlan Floyd.
Okay.
He was from Chicago. And he'd gotten with the band about 6 months or a year before.
Yeah.
And they were in New York, and Rufus was with the band. But he got called to go do a gig with Duke.
Right.
And he went
I saw him with Duke at IU. They came through and played.
Well, he went out with him, and for some reason they got somewhere. They went. I think that's when Duke went to the Far East.
Yeah.
And they were too far away for him to get back.
Oh, okay.
And they called.
They got another Jones.
Got another Jones. Well, yeah.
So sort of Speed Jones, right?
yeah, sort of. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I never knew how you got on the band. I saw you at Madison Heights Gym in I want to say 70, 71.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they had a whole
Yeah.
series there. They had the Basie band and Jaws did a lot. You know, that band, you of course you know, and then Buddy's band, Stan Kenton's band with Jerry McKenzie and John Von Olin sat in at the end of the night, and then
Who was Jerry McKenzie with?
Jerry McKenzie, the Detroit cop. There were two Jerry McKenzies on the
Right.
Kenton band, and Jerry's the younger one. He became a Detroit cop, and we're still
But
in
I
touch.
knew the drummer.
Yeah, Jerry was a drummer, right? There was little Jerry McKenzie in L.A.
Yeah. Yeah.
and then big Jerry McKenzie was the younger Jerry McKenzie. They both played
Oh,
with Stan Kenton.
wow.
And then then it was Glenn Miller's orchestra led by Buddy DeFranco. So I mean my parents bought the whole series for me to go up to Anderson and see all those. So that's when I'd seen you with Paul Winter and then the Basie band. So I was always curious how you got on the Basie band. And Joe, I feel like I'm interviewing you now, Joe. The recent Astrid Gilberto. It's true that you introduced Stan Getz to Astrid.
Come on.
What's that?
No, come on.
No, somebody posted that you introduced the two of them.
Oh, no way.
Oh, okay, all right.
Do you all remember a gig somewhere where it was the first time you looked around the room and there were a lot of famous drummers there, and you had to hold it together?
You mean like today?
on the bandstand.
Yeah. I played the 5 spot in 1960 with an Indiana band, all Indiana guys, except the bass player was Chuck Israels from New York. But everybody, David Young, tenor player, Alan Kiger, David Baker. It was George Russell's band, and we opened at the 5 spot.
There's a record.
Yeah. They say at the 5 spot, but it was a studio session. It was a great sextet. We were all young kids. We'd never been to New York before. And opening night at the 5 spot, we played opposite Jimmy Jufrey with Jim Hall. And anyway, opening night, I looked out and there's Max Roach, Charles Mingus, Ornette Coleman, Ed Blackwell, I'm pretty sure was there. I mean, the whole place was full of people that I got their records, and they're listening to me. Oh my God, I was scared to death. And I can't remember. I think it was Max, especially Max Roach. He was sitting close to me, and so we played the first tune, and I dared to look over at him, and he smiled at me.
That's all you needed, right?
I'm okay. Max Roach smiled. I must be doing something right. I was so scared.
Go a long way.
But it was a good band. We had a lot of IU, Go Get 'Em, whatever, Varsity, Chutzpah, or whatever you call it. So, anyway.
But Joe, that's funny to hear you tell that story because I can remember my first nervous one. I was with Basie's band like 2 or 3 months. We were in Boston at Paul's Mall.
Oh yeah. Sure.
And next door at the Jazz Workshop was Clifford Brown and Max Roach.
Whoa.
So we're up here playing, and in walks Max and Clifford. So I felt like, well, hell, what am I going to play? Because everything I'm playing was what I got from him on the records. I started thinking that, and I kind of like come to a freeze. And we ended that set. I got down, I went around to stand beside Max just to see what he was going to say. And he said, "Oh, so you got this gig." And that's man. I ain't never forget that line.
Those were the records, man. Harold, those were the records. We were trying to play like that. Your house.
Yeah.
Man.
I think you turned me on to Max, man. Yeah.
I might have.
Yeah.
How about you, Hammer? I know you have a story like this.
Well, it seemed like every night, when you're, because I went out, the first gig was 20, I was on the road, and so you're moving every night, and you're bound to see somebody that scares you to death. And it didn't really happen. We did a big band battle of the bands in your neck of the woods, Joe, and the music circus out there, that big tent out there in Boston.
Yeah, right.
I actually got a Zildjian endorsement from Lenny DiMuzio that night. I was 23 three, I guess, in the band. We were opposite Buddy's band, and we had a great night. And
Who
Joe
are you playing with?
Lovano, Woody Herman's band,
Woody
and
Herman.
it was that band with Joe Lovano and
Okay, got it.
Mark Johnson on bass, Alan Bazzuti. We had a good band, and we did 3 records in 1 month. That was really a good band. And we were on that night. I'd only been on the band a couple of weeks, and I know Buddy's somewhere listening, and they came out, and he was upset, and he fired the trumpet player in the first tune, and the band was scuffling all night. And I thought, well, there's nothing to be nervous about. Everybody has nights like this, I guess. So I got over that. But the first one that scared me was when I had replaced Bobby Durham had left Monty Alexander's gig. And I was 21 at Charlie's Playboy Lounge in Philadelphia, linoleum floor with a wrought iron fence around it to protect the upright piano in the band. And Bobby Durham came in with the hat, and he had a piece strapped to his leg, he's ex-Marine, and he comes in and he's on the left side of the bandstand. I went, oh man, he's going to hate this, because he was just in this chair. So I kind of choked, and we keep playing. Monty and John Clayton, they turn around like, it's okay. Come on. Billy Joe Jones walks across the bandstand and sits at the booth right next to my Chinese cymbal. Well, now I got stereo panic, and I really did choke. And that was the last time I did that. It didn't matter who came in, but John Clayton said, getting nervous is selfish. We need you. You need to play for us. Right. You don't care who's in the room. You got to, now go say hi to these guys, and I went over. Bobby Durham ignored me. Yeah, I heard you. And then I recorded Philly Joe, and he was great. That's when I had the whole day lesson the next day with Philly Joe. So I thought, man, they put their drawers on the same way you do,
That's it.
How to get over that. So the next time it happened, the entire Jazz at the Philharmonic entourage with Ella and Louis Bellson and Brown, and they came in to hear Monty and John and I at Ronnie Scott's in London. And Louis said, you sound great. Don't remember, we came in to hear you. So it's like, yeah, well, everybody's got to go listen to music sometimes. Don't get so nervous playing for these people. So that kind of helped me over that.
Adam, you probably have a story like that too.
Oh. Well, I remember one thing in particular. I was playing at this club, Boomers, in New York. And I hadn't played the Vanguard yet. And I was playing with Bob Mover and bass player Calvin Hill. And Jeff Stout had come down from Boston with James Williams. And I'm playing at Boomers. And I'm nervous. It's my first time playing there, kind of feeling the rite of passage. I'd been there many times. I'd heard everybody playing in there, Cedar, Clifford Jordan, Billy Hart, Larry, everybody. So I'm playing, and Blakey comes walking in, and he comes walking right by me, and he looks up at me, and I knew him from the scene, and, boo, he goes, "You're playing your ass off." Thank God he said that, because 2 minutes later, Mingus and Nuke come in. Mingus and Sonny Rollins. If he hadn't said that to me, I probably just would have had a heart attack and fallen off the drum stool. But, he gave me that encouragement. And, man, the cats were just so supportive. And I'm so grateful for that, man. And Boo, this guy, what can you say about him? What a force. And it was good to get that little bit of encouragement. And, it's like, well, I guess I'm doing something right. So that was good to have. And yeah, there's been a bunch of those situations where you're thrown and then you look and, I remember one of the first times I played the Vanguard, I looked next to me and they're right against the wall. There's like, Mel and Roy Haynes. Usually I'm the one listening to them and they were listening to me. And, they were all very encouraging, man. And I just have so much gratitude for their support. And I guess, they remember when they were the new kids on the block, so we just have to keep it going,
Well, who do you hear that's young doing that Richmond sound? I don't know. There's got to be some kids out there.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right.
After me that we there were a couple of really good teachers in town when I was coming up. Harold studied with one of them, Jack Krakowski, and I had the guy that moved in later, but they taught at the same time, John McMahon, and John was a rudimental snare drum teacher. And if you could make the snare line in the marching band, you could run for mayor. I mean, it was kind of that important, you know. And so his stable of students continued after I left, and there were quite a few. David Hardman is one of them. He went on Woody Herman's band, played with Nat Adderley in Florida. You know, I mean, there are a few Richmond drummers that still can really play. If they didn't continue in music, they could play, you know, and chose not to do that career. So I don't know. I'm not sure where it is now. There's a whole new regime of that. I visited the high school recently, and it's drum and bugle corps influence now, and not so much jazz, you know, and
it's a different time.
Yeah, other drum set styles, you know. So
yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation with all of you.
I was delighted when you put this together, because these are two of my I had, as you could tell, I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask them. They're my heroes, and they, by paving the way, they made it possible for me to feel like I could have the courage to go after this and do this, even when everybody's telling you that it's really not possible. And I just kept pointing to Joe and Harold and Andy Simpkins as well. These guys can do it, you know, and they played with the same piano player I played with in Richmond. So maybe there's a chance. So it's an honor for me to share this with you two gentlemen. Adam, not so much with you, but
I'm the only mere mortal here, so
I don't know.
I was in a different hood. You know, you guys, it was a different pool. You were swimming in a different pool.
Yeah.
But we've all been in the same bodies of water. Amen.
Yeah.
No, you know, I love you, Adam. You know.
Amen.
Oh,
Back
man.
at you all.
Yeah.
Back at you all. You've all been an incredible inspiration for me. So I'm just grateful we could get this together. I mean, we could probably stay here all day and, you know, have a few pops and groove-a-late.
it's easy for me. I didn't have to ask very many questions. Just let you guys have fun together. All right. Well, I owe you all a lunch or a beer or a dinner or something when we get together, but I'll be looking
Joe, great to see you, Harold. Amen.
Yeah, Adam.
You big hammerhead.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Joe, and
to
Harold and Jeff. Adam, my co-host.
Be well. Be well, Jeff. Harold.
All right, Joe.
You got.
Yeah.